there are lots of different ways for us to kind of illustrate what decimals look like and how our decimal place values get smaller and smaller and smaller as we move from left to right. But one way that I always like to do it is through decimal pizza, because pretty much everybody likes pizza. I can't say everybody, because I know at least one person in our class likes to take the cheese off of pizza. But for you, we can pretend that the cheese or that the pizza has no cheese. So we're going to start with one whole pizza, right? And that's not part of decimal place value. That's one whole. That would be part of your ones place in a regular whole number place value. So with our one whole pizza, if we then divide that one whole pizza up into 10 equal parts, and I'm going to see how nicely I can divide that up. I'm going to do my best. It might not be exactly equal, but we've got to give some grace here because I'm drawing, right? We've divided our pizza into 10 equal parts. Each slice is now going to represent 1/10, right? Because I've taken my whole and I've divided it into 10 equal parts. That's just like a fraction, right? Our denominator tells us how many equal parts we divide something into. So in this case, we took our one whole pizza and divided it into 10 equal parts. I have now highlighted just one slice. So each slice equals 1/10. We can represent that as a fraction, and we can also represent that in decimal form as 1 in the tenths spot, right? Our decimal's letting us know, hey, we're in decimal place value now. Our 1 is in our first decimal place value spot, which is the tenths. So we have 1/10, right? On each slice of pizza, and I'll draw a slightly larger slice here so we can illustrate. On each slice of pizza, let's imagine that there are 10 pepperonis. So I'm going to draw those in. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is a loaded up piece of pizza. I hope you like pepperoni. On each slice of pizza, if we have 10 pepperonis, that means I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 total pepperonis, right? If I highlighted just one of those, I would be representing 1 out of my 100 pepperonis, right? 1/100th. 1/100th. I can represent that as a decimal by putting a 1 in my hundredths spot, right? I need a 0 in my tenths because I have no tenths, and then I put 1 in my hundredths spot. We read that as 1/100th, right? So each of my pepperonis is going to represent 1/100th. We'll go back and remember that one pizza is one whole pizza. When I divide that into 10 equal slices, each slice represents 1 out of 10, or 1/10 of the pizza. When I put 10 pepperonis on each of my 10 slices of pizza, that's like doing 10 times. And I look at just one pepperoni, that's representing 1 out of 100 pepperonis, which is 1/100th. And I can represent that as a decimal as 1/100th, a 1 in my hundredths spot. Now I want you to imagine, and I'm going to draw this as this is now my giant pepperoni, right? And we have 100 pepperonis on this whole pizza, right? On each pepperoni, there are 10 little jalapeno slices. They're like tiny little diced jalapenos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? If I were to go and count on my pizza how many diced jalapenos I have, I know that there are 10 on each of my 100 pepperonis. So 10 times 100 is going to give me 1,000. So each tiny little jalapeno, diced jalapeno, is going to represent 1 out of 1,000 jalapenos on that whole pizza. Ooh, that's 100. 1 out of 1,000. And we can represent that in decimal place value as 1,000th, right? Remember, as we read them, we're going to read the number just as normal, right? That looks like the number 1 to me. It's got 2 zeros in front of it, but if I'm reading just this chunk, it's a 1. And then I'm looking at the place values, and those zeros are letting us put the 1 in the proper place value. The 1 is now in the thousandths place. So My jalapeno pieces are representing 1,000th. All right, so going back, we have one whole pizza. We've divided it into 10 equal slices, meaning that each slice represents 1 out of 10, or 1/10. On all of those slices, we have 10 pepperonis. So in total, 10 pepperonis times the 10 slices of pizza is 100 pepperonis on that pizza. Oh, that's a good pizza. All right, so one pepperoni then represents 1 out of 100 pepperonis. 1/100th is how we represent that as a decimal. And then on each of those pepperonis, now you got to work with me, this is now a pepperoni. I know it's the same size as our original pizza, but I can only draw so tiny, you know? So each of those jalapeno slices on our pepperoni, we have 10 per pepperoni, right? 10 jalapenos times 100 pepperonis, and I'll write that to the side. 10 times 100, we know is exactly the same as doing 1 times 1, which is 1, and then adding our 3 zeros behind. So 1,000 is going to give us 1,000 jalapenos. And each little tiny diced jalapeno then represents 1 out of 1,000 jalapenos, which we can put in decimal form as 1,000th. So looking at a much larger pizza, we can see that our pizza, our one whole, is relatively large. And then as we divide it into 10 equal pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, each of those slices is going to be significantly smaller than our one whole, right? So that tells us that 1/10, which is what this is representing, 1/10, right? Or in fraction form, 1/10 is smaller than one whole. And then we're remembering that on each of those slices of pizza, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pepperonis. So each pepperoni is a lot smaller than my one slice of pizza, right? And if my one slice of pizza was representing 1/10 and my pepperoni is representing 1/100th, or in fraction form 1/100, I can see that my slice of pizza right here is larger than my single pepperoni. So as we move from tenths to hundredths, I'm getting smaller. And then on each of these tiny little pepperonis, we're going to pretend that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little jalapeno bits, right? And I can't even represent those. Those would be so teeny, teeny, tiny. We know that 1,000th, or 1/1,000, is going to be even smaller than 1/100th, which is even smaller than 1/10, which of course is smaller than one whole. So when we're moving through decimal place value, and we start with a whole number, then we have our decimal, which we know says and. We move into the tenths, then the hundredths, and then the thousandths. As we go from left, starting with the whole number place values, to right, moving into tenths, we're getting smaller by dividing by 10, right? I took my one whole pizza, I divided it into 10 equal pieces, and then I took my 10 equal pieces and divided 10 pepperonis among each of those pieces, right? Divided it by 10, so 1/100th is going to be smaller than 1/10. And then I took my 10 pepperonis and divided out 10 jalapenos onto each piece to give me 1/1000th. So as I'm moving from left to right, I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This is going to be the opposite of our whole number place value, right? When we start in the whole numbers, we start with ones, then we go to tens and hundreds and thousands, and those are getting larger. When we do decimal place value, we're getting smaller because we're dividing by 10 each time. We're making smaller and smaller and smaller. I hope that Decimal Pizza can help you to see that just a little.